So Rate the Weight is one of our pillars of the Be Well community. It is our version of the subjective units of distress for our new fellow colleagues at Comprehensive. And Lexi says, well, the real Sarah Wilson, please stand up. She might if she were here. However, this is one of our staples. This is our version of subjective units of distress. It is our self-assessment tool. So for those of you who are new and maybe did not join Monday, I'll give the very brief synopsis of there's a professor standing in front of a classroom holding a glass of water, and the professor asks the class, how much does this glass weigh? Well, the students start throwing out numbers and guesses because we all want to be right. And finally, the professor says, it actually matters less how much this glass physically weighs. And she says that it matters more how long we're carrying that glass. So this is your opportunity to rate how heavy your glass is right now in this moment in time. So what we know is that we are human, and because we are human with human brains, we will all have those zeros, ones, and twos, and we will all have those 3s, 4s, and 5s. We try to meet those numbers as non-judgmentally as possible and just settle into where we are in this moment. We ask if you feel comfortable and welcome that you share those numbers in the chat. The reason we do this is because what we also know is shared experiences are helpful for our brains because we are social creatures. So if you feel comfortable, please put that in. I'm also noticing, so we do have our local and some national crisis lines, and I'm noticing that our comprehensive folks are already on top of it with offering KC region support services as well. Thank you so much, Carl, for putting that in too. And we will add that to our slide deck as well. So what I'm going to ask you to do is take a deep breath, settle into your brain or body, and just ask yourself how you're doing right now. If you feel comfortable, put it in the chat. If not, just take personal inventory of that. And I'm going to pause so I can do the same.
Well, I might jump in and just say thank you, Bailey Pyle, for getting us started on being aware of where we are in our bodies and in our minds. And I'm loving the variation in all of the numbers coming in and collective kind of being in it and noticing. So my name is Dr. Karen Shipley. For those of you that I haven't met yet, I'm so happy to see all some new faces here. And so I have the privilege to walk us through a mindful meditation today. But before we begin, Dr. Shelley Farnan scripted a beautiful entry into this, and I'd like to read it and share it with you as to the why. In each Be Well experience, we have a meditation or a mindfulness practice. You all might have one already. They look different and are unique to each one of us, but the one thing that is consistent is that we try to be intentional and aware, we try to breathe, and we try and practice noticing without judgment. And it's incredibly relevant to the conversations that we'll have today. So, as Dr. Farnan writes, as we enter into this conversation today, we acknowledge that while many of us have been living this reality and doing this work for many years, the work is just beginning for many of us as well. While we may feel moved to do something, anything, we may also feel helpless and uncertain of where to turn or what to do next. As we have been doing in the Be Well, for 93 weeks now, wow. And as a law professor and mindfulness expert and social justice advocate, Dr. Rhonda McGee recommends, we start by cultivating mindfulness, what Dr. McGee calls the inner work of racial justice. Mindfulness deepens our ability to notice very subtle aspects of our lived experience and to be present with those aspects. A strong mindfulness practice will help us do the inner work we need to make changes that will impact not just ourselves, but the collective society. Being able to feel all of our feelings and being able to name them without shame or disapproval are crucial steps along the path. So today, for our mindfulness practice, we are going to encourage grounding into your physical bodies, your emotional experience, your thoughts throughout the conversations. You are invited to set an intention to stay aware of your moment-to-moment experience. And asking and noticing throughout the conversation, are you tensing up? And if so, when? Where are you holding it in your body, that tension? Where are you feeling? What happens next? Do you tune out? Do you change the topic? Leave? Laugh? Do you feel an emotion swell up? Feel defensive? And how do you notice any assumptions that come up? And what do you make about those assumptions? What stories come along with them? So those are some of the questions that I'd like for you to think about as we move through the conversations that we'll have today, and practicing that non-judgmental stance as best possible. We are humans with human brains, and they're meant to make judgments. They will have judgments, so there's no judgments about judging, but we do want to take notice of them. What we want to do is be as present as possible to do the work together as possible. So with that, I'm going to ask us to pause for a few minutes and set the grounding for that. So I'm going to ring a bell. I'll probably ring it 3 times as we settle into our bodies. And I'll take us through 2 steps that we've already talked about, but actually practicing in the moment as best possible. So get as comfortable as you can. And then we'll, at the end of it, we'll do a short loving kindness meditation, which we know in the research and in the work that increases our compassion for ourselves and others. And that is a necessary component to this work. So I'll ring us in. Here we go. Everybody take a big inhale and a long exhale out, if you will. And this first spell, just take notice where you are in the space. Just breathe deep and slower than usual if you can, if it's available to you. I invite you to close your eyes if you like, if that's not available, if you can focus your gaze on something that's not so interesting. In this next breath, if you have any urges to move your body or shift around, just get as settled and grounded as possible into an alert yet relaxed state. All right, welcome to this moment, y'all. If you're able to let go of what was happening before, it may happen later. So with your first intentional or next intentional breath, inhale and exhale out. Let's set an intention again to stay aware throughout our time together in this moment. You may say to yourself, I intend to stay aware and as non-judgmental of everything that arises, knowing that everything that arises will help maintain our attention. And as our attention grows, your intention will grow stronger. With the next inhale and exhale, let's connect with the body. So as you're slowly breathing, let your awareness rest on the physical sensations of your body. Maybe starting with your feet on the ground. Do they feel firmly planted? Take notice of any sensations of clothing against your skin. Or maybe the soft breath of air under your nose. Welcome your attention to rest in these sensations as you breathe. And when your thoughts begin to wander, just take notice. Or if they wander to tell a story about the sensations, just simply invite your awareness back to this moment. So I'll offer some phrases of loving kindness, just one round for the collective group today. And you may say it silently to yourself, or just breathe as we move through the statements, these phrases. So with an inhale and an exhale out, let's begin. May we be at peace in our bodies, feeling the ground beneath our feet. May we be attentive and gentle toward our own discomfort or suffering. May we be attentive and grateful for our own joys and well-being. May we move towards others freely and with openness. And may we receive others with understanding and empathy. And as I ring the bell for the last time, I welcome you to take one last intentional breath and slowly open your eyes and come back to our conversation. All right, everyone. With the mindfulness practice, we always have observations. So we welcome, if you want to list them in the text, thank you, Dee. Yeah, and I welcome any thoughts or preferences or what you noticed as we move forward. Thank you, Marley. So glad that you're here. All right, well, I noticed some gratitude for Dr. Farnan. Thank you for helping us begin. Oh, thank you, Michelle. Sierra. It is. We don't notice maybe how fatigued we are until we pause for a moment, right? Yeah. It's a good time to take notice of that fatigue. I think we'll be needing to rest a little bit more in 2022, more rest breaks so that we can keep the pace. Oh, goodness. Let's see. Bailey, my mind was a bit scattered at first. Oh, the welcome to the moment helped my brain prep for this awesome conversation. Wonderful. Misty, agreed. We need more of this in the adult world. Thank you, Misty. Yeah. Scott Kirby, is this what it is like around the magic round table? Scott Kirby, that's a conversation for a different Be Well moment. But that I'd like to think it is, Scott. Scott's referencing a round table that I have in my home. That's part of my diversity and inclusion plan for my family. And yes, I try and practice mindfulness if they let me. And Tiffany, I slept for 11 hours last night. I just needed it. Wow. Well, good on you, Tiffany, for allowing your body to get what it needed. Kimberly, one of my favorite meditations to do daily. I always enjoy this in the morning. That's wonderful, Kimberly. Well, we welcome anyone who ever wants to practice or guide some meditation. We're always open to sharing the space. So what a gift. Thank you all.
Dr. Karen Shipley, thank you for always calmly leading us, steadily leading us. I guess calmly is a bit of a judgment. I don't know how you feel on the inside, but always steadily, consistently showing up to guide us in our mindful meditation practices, which is so necessary, especially as we talk through conversations such as today, all conversations, quite honestly, but as we hear more and more conversation happening about topics related to race, racism, racial injustice, diversity, equity, and inclusion, a lot of times that can be arousing for our systems. That can be a lot of ways. And the power of mindfulness, that key ingredient of mindfulness is necessary in these conversations. So thank you, Karen, always and certainly today. In locking arms, for one, a huge thank you, kudos to both comprehensive, I call them us MARCOM teams, marketing and communications teams, Carl, Lexi, just the teams behind the scenes that help these things come to life. In locking arms, if you don't know me yet either, you know that I'm just going to go off script a lot. So we have a plan. Marley has this beautiful plan for today, and I really want you to know the behind the scenes of how this conversation came to be and how it applies to Dr. Martin Luther King and our missions of comprehensive and rural behavioral health. I also want to make a quick note here that Kiki Rover is our System Director of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion at Burrell, and she's ill today and not able to join us, and she is very disappointed about that, as we are. So thank you, Kiki, also for helping us plan this conversation, and we'll look forward to Kiki joining us as she is able to in the near future. So in locking arms, this is a visual here on the screen that spoke to me. Oh, here comes the emotion, Marley. Okay, good. Okay, so this is a visual that has spoken to me for many years. There was a time in this race conversation that I thought, oh, I carry all of this guilt as a white human, and where is my place in this conversation? So I think through my own personal development, my professional development, somewhere in that, on that path, this image came to life for me. I saw it somewhere, but it truly came to life for me. So as our comprehensive team and Burrell team is coming together, Marley and I have connected. We've served together on the state level on SETI for at least a year. And it's new and different when you're now like on the same team. You've been doing the same work, but now you're like on the same team. And so as we were discussing, okay, what's comprehensive doing for MLK Day? What's Burrell doing for MLK Day? I share this picture. I say, Marley, there is this picture with Dr. Martin Luther King that I finally held myself accountable and responsible for this work. And I said, it's that image. What I noticed about that image was Dr. King in the middle. But what my brain started noticing is this isn't just the Black and African American community marching with Dr. Martin Luther King. This is all of us. I saw myself in this picture. This is me as a white female walking with Dr. Martin Luther King. So I'm saying all of this to Marley. And I'm looking at you, Marley, because you're just like, oh, we're already off script. So I share this with Marley. And it was like 2 hours later that Marley sends something like this with an overview of this conversation about how it applies to our mission of Burrell and comprehensive. And our theme for this conversation, she says, is in locking arms. So I say things like, I want to walk lockstep with all marginalized communities. I want to walk shoulder to shoulder. This is my language, but Marley Bunch says this is our theme, in locking arms, honoring Martin Luther King Day. My friends, this is where we get to come together as comprehensive team and Burrell team as now one team. How do we lock arms? How do we embody the legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King every single day? Because we do. And how do we bring this to life even more so with all of your brilliance, all of our unique individualized voices? So that's a long entry into this conversation where I finally get to welcome Marley Bunch, the Senior Director of Diversity and Culture for Comprehensive, into this conversation, who has literally developed our conversation today. So I get to be a part of it and engage with you, Marley, but I am honored to welcome you. I know Team Comprehensive knows you already, but if Burrell team hasn't met you yet, Marley is going to be one of our, as we all are, just a valued leader in our diversity, equity, and inclusion spaces, as is Kiki. So this will be the team that helps support both of our organizations in moving and in supporting all marginalized humans and truly creating this culture of inclusion, of collaboration, in locking arms. So without further ado, Marley Bunch.
Thank you so much, Shelley. I am so over the moon and giddy to have this conversation with you. I really appreciate your vision with this image. I think it's so powerful. And right now with the merging of Burrell and CMHS, I think it does such an incredible job of demonstrating what we want to happen. And so Shelley and Kiki and I wanted to model that through our conversation today. And I'm just so honored and excited to work with you, Shelley, and with Kiki and with everyone at Burrell. So thank you for having us today. I want to maybe just let Shelley, if you want to talk about the allyship, and that's kind of the premise of this image: coalition, allyship, co-conspiratorship.
Ooh, co-conspiratorship. I've also said things like, and this is where Marley helps me, because I say things like, I want to be an accomplice. And she says, maybe co-conspiratorship. And I was like, oh, yeah. Okay, so what is allyship? Here's a beautiful quote from the director of diversity programs at Mayo. You can search the definition of allyship, and what you're going to read is something like this: when a person aligns themselves with another person or groups. Yeah. Okay, and what we're going to do as DEI team supporting all of you in our mission with our organization is taking that one step further, not just that base layer. This is the basic definition. So allyship to us is when we, with privilege, and we all have privilege in unique ways, right? So that's kind of that word that brings our survival states to the surface a little bit. Just breathe with me, channel Dr. Shipley. When a person of privilege works in solidarity and partnership with a marginalized group of people to help take down the systems that challenge that group's basic rights, equal access, and ability to thrive in our society. So that's when myself as a white female can acknowledge I have privilege in my identity. And how do I walk lockstep and shoulder to shoulder in locking arms with folks that don't have the privilege that I have? I have privilege as a leader. I have privilege as a psychologist. So truly asking ourselves, where do I have privilege? And how can I serve those that don't have that privilege in breaking down the systems that are not allowing them access and to arrive in ways that they deserve as well, that we all deserve as well. So this is the this is the definition that we are rooting our conversation in today. Is when we ask questions about allyship, think of this definition: when we use our privilege to support those that don't have those privileges and work to break down the barriers, to improve systems so that there is more access, equal access to basic rights. So here is our definition. And I think, Marley, what might be helpful in Lexi, maybe we just stop sharing for just a minute as Marley educates us a little bit on Dr. Martin Luther King and who he was and his legacy as we move forward in our conversation.
One of the things that I love about Martin Luther King is he was committed to ongoing education, right? We know he skipped several grades in high school. He started college at the age of 15. So his learning was ongoing, and also his deep commitment to allyship and coalition with others. And that was across political lines, race, gender, age, just like that picture illustrates. And so those are two things I really, really appreciate about him. He was not only an advocate for racial equality, he also sought to ensure socioeconomic equality. His commitment to learning also embodied this idea that he knew he was infallible, that he was going to make mistakes, like we all will. And again, his willingness to just connect, I think, was one of his great superpowers with people all over. So he really was inclusive in his approach to move the needle for social justice. He did not start off with the intention of becoming a figure. He actually got put in that position after the bus boycotts of 1960s that he helped to lead. And so he was learning as he was going. And again, I think his idea was very much attached to this idea of the general good. What's the best thing for the general good? And so I appreciate that greatly about him. And I think that those are things we want to model in our thinking in our interactions with each other as an organization, with our clients, and really with society. One of the things that's not well known, or maybe it is, he actually had the heart of a 60-year-old, right? He passed away, I think, at 38 or 39, and endured so much stress that his heart was that of someone in his 60s. So he literally gave his heart to ensure that society was more equitable. And so in thinking about allyship, I think it's important to also think about what are we willing to sacrifice or give for his dream to come to fruition. One of his great quotes I just want to share is, he said, "Now is the time to rise from the dark and desolate valley of segregation to the sunlit path of racial justice. Now is the time to lift our nation from the quicksands of racial injustice to the solid rock of brotherhood." So it's just a little bit about him that I hope we can again bring into our own work that we do together.
Marley, as you're sharing a bit of history, yeah, Misty says beautifully put, Marley. Like as you were giving a bit of history, I was noticing in my body, like where that landed. And I think those are those cues of why did it land that way? And I think if I can think quickly here, it's the cost of allyship, right? The cost of our service, even mental health work, behavioral health work, and knowing how much that impacts our own health and well-being, and the exact reason that we are coming together like this, and that we want to be so overt in how our DEI teams want to support all of us. So yes, in behavioral health work, and as we are all navigating in a time that this conversation is at the forefront. It's uncomfortable. So if you're serving in schools, you're seeing this in unique ways, especially in Kansas City today. Right. And so we want to make sure that we are very overt in caring for ourselves and each other, as I hear the cost of allyship. Now, I'm not saying like the cost is too high for allyship, because you all know how invested I'm all in for my whole life. And there is a cost associated with that. And Marley, I think this takes us to this next piece of the conversation, where we want to bring your voices to life. We don't want to talk at you for our time together. We really want to bring up questions. So for our team, we're going to continue this conversation. If folks are watching this live later, we know that we're not gathering together for you to engage in these questions, but hit pause on the video, take a screenshot, take these questions to your spaces. Ask your family to engage in these questions with you. Take these questions with you to work, and ask your team members to engage with these questions with you. So we have prepared some questions here, reflection questions, just to make sure that we're doing a bit of this work. Our teams are going to do this work together. And if you're watching later on Facebook Live, then please take these questions with you into the spaces that are meaningful for you, and that you know meaningful change and growth is possible.